Well, aren't regulars, I'm usually the Nerd Nite MC, but tonight I have a talk for you that I have had on the back burner for a very long time. The 5 habits of highly effective drinkers, where I will teach you about everything that causes hangovers and also how to never get one again. Let's get a feel for the room. How many of you have had some nights like this? And how many of you have had mornings like this? Despite these mornings, how many of you absolutely refuse to learn anything and do the same thing every weekend? Then you're going to be glad you tuned in for this talk. One day, half a decade ago, I was having one of these mornings, just inches from death. And I thought to myself, wait, my head is what's hurting. I'm literally getting a Ph.D. in neuroscience right now. I'm like one of the most qualified people on the planet to stop this from happening. I should probably dedicate some time to it. And I'm happy to say I was actually successful in my research. My worst hangover ever was at a friend's wedding in Colorado. We were drinking amazing top shelf alcohol for the entire weekend, and everything was going great. And then Sunday, after the wedding, I had a single shitty Natty Light Natterdays red, white, and blueberry lemonade, and the full accumulated hangover from 3 days of drinking at high altitude collapsed in on me all at once. I remember pacing the room, holding my head, getting ice from the ice machine from 7 p.m. until my flight the next morning, and the feeling didn't go away for 3 entire days. And now, the last time I had an evening where I had so many drinks I'm actually missing pieces of the night, I ran a 5K in the morning. Thank you. I literally came in last fucking place in this 5K, but if I tried that after Colorado, I would have literally died. So, way better results. Before we get to the cures, let's dive into the definition of what a hangover even is. If you ever get a hangover that's so bad you have to be hospitalized, the medical term for a hangover is visalgia. This comes from the Latin suffix algia, which describes medical conditions that come with pain and suffering. And the Norwegian word kveis, which specifically means uneasiness after debauchery. So basically, if you're diagnosed with this, it's like a doctor telling you you're in pain because you make bad choices. And for me, the visalgia I feel is pretty fucking terrible. But before we get into it, I'd also like to share another fun fact I learned from New York's chapter where they did a similar talk on hangovers, the economic impact of hangovers. According to the study from the UK, hangovers account for about 2.3 sick days per year for the average adult. This is in addition of 2.5 days of showing up and just being a pile of trash. We all wish that we could have all of the fun with none of the suffering, defying the very gods of alcohol with their justifiable punishment for our overindulging. And by the end of this talk, with the power of science, that is just what you'll be prepared to do. Hangovers are caused by 5 things: dehydration, electrolyte deficiency, congeners, malnutrition, and GABA depletion. We're going to go through each of these and talk about how to solve them, and then I'll share my personal process with you for how you can be immune to hangovers too. Let's start with dehydration. This one is fairly straightforward. Ever since elementary school soccer, we all knew that dehydration causes headaches. Alcohol causes dehydration because it is a diuretic. This is why, once you break the seal, you're going to have to go to the bathroom constantly throughout the night. Alcohol does this by lowering your levels of a hormone called vasopressin. This hormone causes water retention to improve in the kidneys. So of course, lowering it decreases your water retention and causes you to have to pee early and often. This leads us to the first mistake a lot of people make regarding hangovers. I know I'm dehydrated, so I should drink water. That makes sense, right? No! This is super wrong! Take it from Henry Winkler from The Water Boy. When it comes to hangovers, water sucks. If you get hungover and you're spending all day doing nothing but eating food, resting, and drinking water, and you still feel shitty all day and even into the next day, I can tell you 100% it is because you are drinking water. When you drink a lot of water to get hydrated, it also causes you to have to pee a lot. And why is this bad? To double down on how much you are peeing? It's because of what's in all that urine that you're passing. Of course, it's mostly water, but there's also a ton of other stuff. There's a handful of vitamins, uric acid and other acids, hormones, blood. Wait, no, not blood, no. The most important one for this talk is electrolytes. Most importantly, and mostly highly concentrated, is sodium, potassium, and chloride, with the first two having a very big impact on hangovers, because these two are both critical for many elements of brain function. Magnesium will also come into play, but in a different way that we'll talk about later. To counteract this, rather than water, drink things that have high concentrations of sodium and potassium. For sodium, sports drinks and vegetable juices will have you covered, or just a bowl of chicken noodle soup. For potassium, coconut water, or lots of other fruit juices, just look for anything that has potassium on the nutrition facts. And for solid foods, bananas are a great choice. To get them both at once, my choice is always Pedialyte. I always like to pick one of two options. The first is freezer pops. Not only are they delicious, but they just hit so right when you're wrapped up in blankets trying to recover from a horrible hangover. And the second is the powder packets. These are great for a few reasons. First of all, they come in bulk, so you don't have to stock up on them as often. They don't take up as much space in your cabinets, and they can be ordered online and delivered straight to your door, letting you avoid feeling like an asshole dealing with your drinking problems, shopping next to exhausted parents in the baby supplement section. Next up are congeners. Congeners are chemicals other than ethanol in your drinks. Sometimes added intentionally, sometimes byproducts of the process of making alcohol. Often they are described as organic compounds that add taste to your drinks. But they also include assorted impurities. The most common is trace amounts of methanol. Your body breaks down the ethanol in alcohol into acetaldehyde, but methanol gets broken down into formaldehyde, which you probably know is pretty damn poisonous. Drinking straight methanol can kill you, or literally make you go blind. This is where the term blind drunk comes from shitty bootleggers making drinks that were fused with methanol so that it made people drinking it lose their ability to see. So, is there anything you can do to avoid filling your body with formaldehyde while drinking? Sure, there is. Many congeners, methanol included, are filtered out during the distilling process. Distillation is a system where alcohol is purified by putting it into a distillation still. The liquid is then heated to a temperature at which point the methanol, which has a very low boiling point, will evaporate through the pipe where it can be condensed into the receiver on the other side where it is then discarded. After the methanol is removed, the ethanol, which has only a slightly higher boiling point, crosses over where it is collected. And then you can take it out and put it back in to repeat the process over and over to remove more water and congeners to end up with a more purified alcohol. Additionally, the type of alcohol that you consume has a big impact on how bad your hangover will be. In general, dark alcohols have a much higher level of congeners. This is one of the reasons why you find so many brands of dark liquors that tout that they have been distilled multiple times. In addition to dark liquors, red wine and darker styles of beer also are worse for your hangover. On the other hand, light beers and white wine are better, along with clear liquors like vodka and gin. If you want to go all out after this talk to avoid hangovers, I'd like to recommend Purity Vodka. Not only is it a nice clear liquor, but every drop is distilled 51 times. On the what causes hangovers spectrum, this puts it as low as you can go before just getting to not drinking at all. Its counterpart on this opposite side of the spectrum would be chugging industrial grade methanol, which is only beaten out by getting hit by a truck. This also seems like a good time to bring up something I mentioned earlier, a chemical called acetaldehyde. Some people say this is something that causes hangovers. But this chemical is a natural byproduct as your liver breaks down ethanol. It gets converted from ethanol into acetaldehyde, into acetate, and then finally is converted to water. But according to my research, this chemical causing hangovers is a myth. A study has shown that its concentration does not statistically significantly correlate with hangover severity. which may make you sad that you've been lied to, but you should also be happy that it's a myth, because this is a necessary byproduct of processing alcohol with a healthy liver. And there's no pills, supplements, or upside-down gluten-free yoga moves that you can do to make it go away any faster. The last one, before we get to my real secret sauce, is just malnutrition. If you don't eat, you get a headache. This is caused by low blood sugar making your brain not able to get the nutrients that it needs. In addition, when you're hungry, muscles around your skull become more tense and stress hormones are released, and both of these things will lead to headaches. And if you start drinking at noon and your stomach is full of alcohol all day and you never feel hungry and forget to eat dinner, that's also pretty bad for malnutrition. Not that I've ever done that, Mom, when you're watching this on YouTube later. The real secret from this talk, though, is something that I never even heard about being associated with hangovers before diving into the research myself. It is the depletion of a neurotransmitter called GABA. GABA is an inhibitory chemical in your brain that prevents neurons from firing. It does this by binding to GABA synapses. There are multiple types of these synapses, but they all either allow positive ions to flow out of a neuron or negative ions to flow in. Either way, you're reducing the voltage of a postsynaptic cell. And as we all know, raising the neuron's voltage is what causes it to fire. So GABA is inhibitory in the sense that it causes neurons not to fire. But who cares? How does this relate to anything? When alcohol enters your brain, the reason we love it is that it lowers our inhibitions, allowing us to make more fun and usually dumber choices. One of the ways it lowers your inhibitions is by lowering the efficacy of the inhibitory GABA in your brain. It does this by binding to the synapses that normally would be bound to by GABA. So now those synapses are holding onto alcohol instead of GABA, which allows the neurons to continue firing more actively. It's like the neuron is me deciding whether or not to jump into a gorilla exhibit and pretend to be a gorilla at a late night at the Natural History Museum event. The GABA is my friends telling me not to do it, and the alcohol is just still alcohol. So great, it blocks GABA. What does that mean for you? The reason this is important for hangovers is that evolution didn't account for us intentionally drinking poison every weekend. So our brain doesn't have separate responses for GABA-based alcohol-based GABA interactions versus regular ones. So your brain just recognizes, okay, my inhibitory synapses are being bound to like crazy right now. I better make less GABA to balance it out, even though the GABA isn't functioning at all. So when your liver filters out all the alcohol, you are left with a huge GABA deficit. And GABA deficits can lead to full-blown migraines. This is the reason why hangover headaches are so much worse than usual headaches. If you're someone who doesn't get them, now you have the power to experience a migraine with a little help from our friend, excessive drinking. Yippee, a migraine! I never thought I'd get the chance to try one. Another side effect of this is not being able to sleep. GABA enables the body and mind to relax and fall asleep, and maintain that sleep throughout the night. If you wake up at 5 a.m. after a night of drinking, feeling miserable and unable to fall back asleep, once again, your problem is GABA depletion. So, fuck, yeah, that's a pretty big problem. What can you do about it? Can you take a GABA supplement? No, you can't. Even though people sell this product, research has been unable to show that GABA ingested in a pill is able to cross the blood-brain barrier, and therefore it can't get where it needs to be useful. What you can do, though, is take what's called a GABA precursor. These are chemicals that your brain uses to produce its own GABA, which your body does have a system of getting where it needs to go. And if you're just totally flush with these precursors, it can help your brain replenish your stores. You can Google other options if you want later, but the ones that I always like to use is one, a magnesium supplement, mentioned that one would come up earlier, a probiotic called Lactobacillus brevis, or Bifidobacterium dentium. Feel free to take a screenshot if you don't have a photographic memory. And it is these two specifically, but they actually are available in many local drugstores. And the last one is a Red Bull. Ever buy a Red Bull and wonder, what the fuck is a taurine? Well, I don't really know either, but it's a GABA precursor. Important thing to note about this slide. One thing I can tell you for sure does not contain any GABA precursors that will help you, and definitely not make your hangover feel better at all, despite the colors you see here, is a Natty Light Natterdays red, white, and blue lemonade. Fuck, I'm never drinking that shit again. So now that we've hit all 5, if you want to know my exact regimen, if I know it's going to be a rowdy night, I like to start out with a Pedialyte before I even go out. Then I drink all the alcohol, usually sticking with light liquors, maybe with the exception of a shot or 5 of tequila if the night calls for it. Then when I get home, 1 more Pedialyte pouch, something very high in calories as a late night snack, and 99% of the time, that's really all you need to do. The main factor in hangovers for most of your experiences is going to be dehydration, electrolyte deficiency, and malnutrition. Everything else is just for the serious emergencies. But for those emergencies, because of the GABA depletion, if I had a really rough night, I often wake up at 5 a.m. feeling like trash. And if I'm feeling that way when I wake up, that's when you gotta do magnesium probiotic, that last Pedialyte pouch, the Pedialyte Triple Crown, and a high-calorie breakfast. And then when I wake up after going back to sleep, that's when I take the Red Bull, and then I'm actually ready to go no matter how loud I was the night before. That always kickstarts my day. And that's all you need to do. But I would like to point out this is all my own independent research and experimentation. There's been very few actual peer-reviewed scientific studies on hangovers, their causes, and their cures. But if this doesn't work for you and you still feel terrible after all of it, the only scientifically proven cure for alcohol causing a hangover is drinking more alcohol. This works for 2 reasons. 1, the alcohol goes back to binding to your GABA synapses, so your brain stops going completely haywire. And 2, remember methanol is a big cause of hangovers? Ethanol actually binds to methanol when they're put in the same area, and it inactivates it before it can cause you problems. So hair of the dog, scientifically proven to be a real hangover cure. In conclusion, some lucky folks out there, like most college freshmen, just don't get hangovers. But if you're a normal, mortal human like me, this'll work for you too. I guarantee it.